want you to feel welcomed in this space, and we encourage you to ask your questions in the chat box below. The Q&A tab can be used to drop your questions in there, and we'll get to that further into the conversation. I'm Deanna LaFay, the North Texas Coalition Director. Here, I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Kina.
Hi, welcome everyone. My name's Kina Wiltz. Pronouns are she, her, and I am the Central Texas Coalition's Director.
And hey everybody, my name is Trayshawn Pate. My pronouns are he, him, his, and I am the Gulf Coast Regional Coalitions Director. I am here in Houston. All right, so real quick, we want to highlight all of the Black staff that you see on screen right now. Just give me a quick second to pull up. All right, I'm going to invite all of our staff to introduce themselves. Sorry, I'm having some technical difficulty sharing this real quick. All right, sorry about that. First up, Jason is going to introduce himself.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jason Lee. I am the Deputy Campaign Manager for Beto for Texas, and I'm really excited to be on this call with all of you this evening.
All right, thank you so much, Jason. And next, Daniel is going to introduce himself.
Hey everyone, my name is Daniel Davis Clayton. I serve as the North Texas Regional Political Director for the Beto O'Rourke campaign, and I'm in Dallas by way of Emory, Texas.
Thank you, Daniel. Next, Kiana is going to introduce herself.
Hey everyone, I'm Kiana O'Neill. I use she, her pronouns. I'm currently in the Houston, Texas area. I am the digital manager for the campaign.
Next we have Aisha.
Hey y'all, my name is Aisha McClendon. I'm in Dallas, Texas, the best city in Texas, I might add. And I'm super excited to be here with you all. I'm the senior advisor working with the political team. And I also, while I'm here, want to give a huge shout out to some of the state representatives that we have on the call tonight. And I apologize, I'm literally going through the chat. If I missed someone, please send us a message. Charge it to my, don't charge it to my heart. It's completely a mistake. We have Representative Nicole Collier, Representative Tony Rose, Representative Retta Bowers, Representative Jasmine Crockett, Representative Sean Theory, Rep. Ron Reynolds, Representative Jolanda Jones, Representative Barbara Gervin Hawkins, Representative Alma Allen. I think I even saw some great candidates that we have on the call tonight. I think I saw Deborah Peoples, Christian Manuel, and Vinton Jones. Thank y'all so much for joining us and representing tonight.
Thank you for that, Aisha. And last but not least, Cameron.
What is up, everybody? I am so excited that you all are here on today. I am Cameron Gerard Greer, the statewide faith director. I am so glad that you have taken time out of your busy Monday to be here on today. Thank you. So, what's up, my fellow Black Texans? I don't know about you, but this moment in 2022 is so exciting for me. I'm just excited. I just can't hide it. I'm about to lose control, and I think I like it because we have the opportunity to elect a governor who cares. We have the opportunity to elect somebody who has a passion for the people, who's concerned about the needs of everyday people, not just he's a concerned person who's investing himself, who has given money, who has given his time to the people. And as I try to figure out what to say about a man who people already know, this simple phrase came to me: we've got to try. I admit to you, my brothers and sisters, that after 2016 election, I was ready to give up and lose hope in our system of democracy, because at the time I was teaching high school students, and I was teaching them the importance of getting involved and participating in the democratic government process. And I was ready to give up after the election results. And one of my students said, Dr. Greer, that all this stuff that you've given us, you said that elections happen every year. We just got to try again. And so 2 years later, a man from El Paso, Texas, made the conscious decision to step up and participate in the process of the state's transformation. In 2018, Beto O'Rourke ignited a fire in Texas, but he also ignited a fire within my students, but he also ignited a fire within me. And I had to stir it up because it was a fire that would make this state better. I know in 2022, there are some who still believe that Texas is a city is a shiny city on a hill. And in many ways, the state of Texas is a shiny city on the hill, but the hard reality is that not everyone is sharing in the state's splendor and glory. Yesterday, we celebrated the 59th anniversary on the March on Washington, and the words of Dr. King still rings true, that we're cashing a check that is coming back with insufficient funds. And the word is, we still have to try. We have to try because we have Beto O'Rourke on our side. We have to try again. And I wouldn't be a Black preacher if I did not extend an invitation for you to get involved and get active and participate. And even if you are on the verge of giving up, don't. Because it's time to try again. And for those who are encouraged and are excited, I need you to start using your phones and start calling your family and friends and ensure that they are registered and they vote. And make sure that they not just are registered, but they get to the polls during early voting and election day. I need to make it known, and you need to make it known in your communities, in your churches, in your businesses, in your school, that we have an opportunity to transform Texas. And Beto will ensure that every voice is heard. People ask me, why do I support him? Because I've been north, south, east, and west with him, and he remembers everything. I don't know how he does it, but he remembers everything people say to him. He is not just putting ideas together, but he's also putting a plan together to make sure that everybody has a voice, that everybody has a seat at the table. When times get rough, I just say, keep trying. When people say they don't care about this election, keep trying to get their attention, wake them up to the realities that confront us. I know you're saying, Cam, right now, I don't have the time to get involved. I know it's like a jungle sometimes, and it makes you wonder how you keep from going under. And I know you are being pushed against the walls, but keep trying. Because we have a campaign that is about lifting up everyday people, lifting up oppressed people, lifting up marginalized people, and giving them hope that a new day is on the horizon. As Barbara Jordan once says, for all of its uncertainty, we cannot flee from the future. This campaign is about claiming the gift of a brand new future for Texans. And that means we got to knock on some doors. That means we got to send out text messages. That means we got to write letters. That means we got to spread the word, get involved, and get into the arena. Because in the coming days and months, I need you to do me a favor and try to do something that you never tried before. The thing that I love about Beto O'Rourke is that he keeps trying. Nothing seems to knock him down. He keeps trying. He won't give up. He can't stop, and he won't stop. He will keep on being that voice for the voiceless. And in those moments you get discouraged, remind yourself, we got to try. As laws continue to be created to tell women what to do with their bodies, we got to keep trying. When they keep on creating laws to keep up the voter suppression and intimidation, we got to keep on trying. We have the power this election to elect a candidate who will help us rewrite laws. I said all that to say all of this. We have 71 days to transform Texas. And it's time to get into the arena and participate in the process of our own transformation. I need you to put your virtual hands together. And I need you to stay on this call, because if you have some questions, we're here to answer it. Because we are about engagement. We are about empowerment. We are about energizing the people. And I need you to put your virtual hands together for the incredible, the awesome, the talented, the next governor of the state of Texas, Beto O'Rourke.
Whoa, Cameron. Oh, man, that was amazing. Folks, I've had the chance to work with Cameron for, I don't know how long, and I've seen him at events. I've seen him lead events. He's introduced me to so many great people. We met privately, we've met in groups. I've never seen him this on fire, this electrified, or this energized, which is another great sign about just how well we're doing in this campaign and what the next 71 days, I think he just said, are going to look like for us. We bring this kind of energy, this kind of enthusiasm, this kind of passion to the work that we have before us. Nothing is going to stop us. Cameron, thank you. And thanks for joining the team. And I want to thank everyone who just had a chance to introduce themselves. This is the team that comprises the campaign that's going to win this race for governor. And if you're on this webinar, we want you to be part of it. We want you, in whatever capacity you can, to contribute your talent, your genius, your energy, your electricity, your passion, just like Cameron is, to connect with the voters who are going to decide the outcome of this election. As Cameron just pointed out, everything that we could possibly care about is on the line right now. And as he also described, we have a choice before us. We can accept that what we have today is our future, our fortune, our fate, this attack on women's bodily autonomy, this governor who tries to tell us who we're supposed to hate or be afraid of next, the level of chaos, incompetence, cruelty, and corruption that we see in the highest ranks of power in the very governor's office right now, that leads to the energy capital of the world not being able to keep the lights on and having our electricity bills as a result shoot through the roof, or whether we are better than that. And instead of following that temptation to despair, we decide that we're going to overcome this by doing the work before us. And that means winning this election. That, of course, is what all of us have decided to do. And that's why I'm so confident that we are going to win. And I want you to be part of this team. So for everyone who's part of this campaign, everyone that you just met, or those who volunteer, who knock on doors, who make phone calls, who are organizing in their communities for us each and every single day, I want to say thank you. To those that I've met along the way, including Gail, who I met in Humble, Texas, 4 or 5 days ago. Gail, who told me that she was going to be on this organizing call, and that she was going to be on this organizing call, and it was going to be her birthday. Gail, I want to wish you a very, very happy birthday, and I want to welcome you aboard this extraordinary team and this amazing effort, this campaign and this cause that has the opportunity to transform Texas for the better. I want to tell you a little bit about what we are doing, where we are, the road ahead, and I want to answer your questions. First of all, the fact that you've taken some time out of your Monday evening to be with us this many days before this election begins to describe your commitment to this effort. You could be doing any number of other things, but you're here not necessarily for the candidate or the political party. You're here because you care about your family, your community, this state, our country, and you want to make sure that you're doing your part to make it all better. And I want to assure you that our work together so far has borne incredible results. One, we are quickly catching up to the governor in the polls. We were 15 points down at the start of this in the most reliable poll. We are 5 points or under right now and gaining ground every single day. That's without having spent a dime on television. That is word of mouth. That is shoe leather. That is showing up in communities. That is all of you who are knocking on doors and making phone calls, talking to the voters who respond to the pollsters, who are saying, you know what? Now that I hear that we have a candidate who wants to bring us together, who wants to heal this division, who wants to focus on the big things like world-class public schools, expanding Medicaid, making sure that we have the best jobs in America right here in the state of Texas, a governor who's going to make sure that every woman makes her own decisions about her own body, her own future, her own health care. I want to get behind that guy. I want to be part of this team. We're seeing that show up in polls, and we see it on the ground everywhere that we go. Record turnout in cities big, in counties small. It does not matter how reliably red or predictably blue a place might be. People are showing up for change, and you all are part of it. We've also outraised Greg Abbott by nearly $3 million in the last 4-month reporting period, 500,000 contributions. The greatest number came in from Texas school teachers. So to my classroom teachers, counselors, librarians, cafeteria workers, school bus drivers, support staff, administrators, the folks who make public ed work in the state of Texas, thank you for what you do day in and day out. One of the toughest jobs in the hardest time in which to do it. And then thank you for putting your money where your mouth is and making sure that we have the resources to reach these voters. That's a really, really, really good sign. And then I mentioned the turnout at our events. To have in Greenville and Hunt County, 800 people show up to a 500-person gymnasium, meaning 300 people had to wait outside, which they did in the hot Texas sun in the middle of the day to take part in this campaign. To have crowds like that in Madisonville, in Marlin, in El Campo, but also to see record turnout in Houston and Austin and DeSoto and Dallas and Fort Worth and San Antonio, in my hometown of El Paso in the Rio Grande Valley. And also just to bring home the point. I know everyone on this call knows it, but here's a message for the rest of Texas. Very often people will say, well, rural Texas means Anglo or white Texas. And what we know from visiting every rural county in Texas is that rural Texas means the diversity that we know is the pride of this state. Communities that boast the broad representation that we want to see in the staff of this campaign, in our government after we win, in opportunity economically, academically, politically, or otherwise in the state of Texas. We're showing up for everyone everywhere, and people are turning out. In this campaign, no one is taken for granted and no one is written off. And that is certainly reflected in these extraordinary state representatives and other political leaders who've joined the call today. I want to thank Chairwoman Collier for being here, all of her colleagues who showed such grit, courage, determination, and leadership when our very democracy was on the line. Chairwoman Collier helping to lead the effort to walk off the floor of the House of Representatives in the last regular legislative session to deny the Republican majority and Greg Abbott the quorum necessary to undermine and potentially destroy our democracy. They were willing to hold out, going so far as to leave the state, travel to Washington, D.C., risking their careers, their freedom under threat of arrest, to stand up for the right to vote and to continue that important struggle, that sacrifice, that service that so many who came before them have led an example and an inspiration, and now provide the inspiration for all of us. And despite their best efforts, Greg Abbott, through one special session after another, was finally able to prevail, seriously weakening our democracy, threatening the right to vote in Texas more than any other state. But I tell you what, I would not sleep on these amazing state representatives, these other candidates, and the hundreds of other people and thousands more who are watching right now, who are on this call, who are more than a match for this moment and are going to do what is necessary to make sure that we get this great democracy back. That's what this campaign is all about. And when we say democracy, we really mean it. That means showing up for people where they are, not just in their towns, but knocking on their doors, going to churches, showing up where folks are congregating and listening and learning from those that I want to serve. And I want to tell you, as I listen to Black Texans across the state of Texas, there are a number of issues that come through loud and clear. So many of them have to deal with opportunity, the ability for each and every single Texan to live up to their full potential and reveal their true promise for themselves, their family, and for the rest of us here in Texas. For many, that begins with a world-class public school education. And as we all know, public educators are under increasing attack from Greg Abbott right now in Texas. Whether it's the governor asking you to turn in the parents of transgender students under the accusation of child abuse, where if sustained, those kids will be taken from those loving parents and turned over to a foster care system that is the worst run in the United States of America. Whether it's a governor who says that he's afraid that critical race theory is being taught to second graders and third graders and wants to deny our children and our teachers the ability to learn the true history, the facts, and the story of each and every Texan to make sure that we have the best possible education so that we don't repeat the mistakes of the past and that we live up to a far brighter future going forward for this generation and every that follows. Or the fact that Texas teachers today are among the most underpaid anywhere in this country, and far too many are working 2 and 3 jobs in order to make ends meet. I want to make sure that we're doing better, that we respect those teachers who've answered the call, that we pay them enough just to work one job so that they can focus on that child in front of them and draw forth a lifelong love of learning, after which there is no stopping that kid, nor is there stopping the rest of this state. I want to make sure that equity is part of the conversation and part of the action when we look at public education. And that means when we see a kindergarten classroom and children based on race are treated differently by their teachers, a Black child 5 times as likely to be disciplined, suspended, or expelled, beginning a journey from the schoolhouse to the jailhouse that many, myself included, assume began in high school, but begins when that child is 5 years old, completely defenseless against this system. It means intentionally hiring more teachers who look like the children that they are teaching, who have the cultural competency to make sure that they are also able to draw forth the best from our fellow Texans, especially those who are just at the beginning of their educational career. It means investing in universal all-day pre-K, freeing up not just those kids to learn at an earlier age, but their parents to finish their education, pursue their career, and follow their talent and genius, no matter where it leads. It means better access to higher education. We don't begrudge that the University of Texas at Austin and Texas A&M are the 2 most highly endowed public universities in America. That's great. But let's also make sure that resources flow to historically Black colleges and universities across the state of Texas. They are powerhouses for educational attainment. They're economic drivers for this state. They produce an extraordinary return on investment, and yet they're seeing just a fraction of the investment that other public universities are receiving across the state. I want to make sure that we correct that error and see more from these wonderful institutions that have already produced so much. When it comes to healthcare, I want to make sure that the least insured state in America, a state that is 51st in access to mental health care, is able to become number 1. That means accepting Medicaid expansion. That's $10 billion more a year that will flow into the state. That is our in federal income taxes that we paid into Washington, D.C., coming back to us so that we can connect more people with care, stand up more of those closed rural hospitals. And it also means having the resources to focus on maternal health care. Unfortunately, Texas today is the epicenter for a maternal mortality crisis that plagues this country. It has been made worse by Greg Abbott, his attack on women, this total abortion ban with no exception for rape or incest. in a state where the maternal mortality rate is 3 times as deadly for Black women. Not only do I want to overturn this abortion ban and ensure that every Texas woman makes her own decisions about her own body, her own future, and her own health care, but I want to invest in connecting Black women with the kind of care that will ensure that they can survive their pregnancies, that they do not have to fear interactions with the medical community or with doctors. And that, again, as with education, that we intentionally focus on equity, trying to make sure that we hire more doctors and medical providers who look like the patients that they're serving. Incredibly important if this state is going to fulfill its purpose and its destiny. And that means treating every single one of our fellow Texans equally. I want to make sure that for our small business owners, that we have equal access to capital. I want to shore up community lending. I want to do more with state financing, especially when it comes to access to home loans, which, as any small business owner knows, is critical in order to build further capital and have greater economic opportunity and more chances to create more jobs for more fellow Texans. Having met with many small business owners in the African American community, I know that this is critical, and I want to make sure that we lead on it. That also means opening up more state contracts to Black-owned small businesses. Effectively and functionally, they have been shut out for far too long. It is time to open the door. One of the last things that I want to mention, because I've heard this so often across the state of Texas, we know that unfortunately we have 5 of the worst mass shootings in U.S. history in just the last 5 years, including the shooting in Uvalde now more than 14 weeks ago, without a single thing done by this governor to prevent any more. But we also know that on a daily basis throughout the state of Texas, far too many of our fellow Texans lose their lives to gun violence. And because it is not sensational or it's not part of a mass shooting, it doesn't make the newspapers or the broadcast news. We never learn the names of the victims. It's become so numbingly common. In fact, Black Texans are 10 times as likely to experience gun violence as white Texans in this state. It is time that we have a governor who takes common sense steps that ensure that we defend the Second Amendment, which is critically important to this state and to our country, but that we also do a better job of protecting the lives of those in our lives. A universal background check is a great start. Red flag law is another important step that allows us to intervene through due process before it's too late when someone is threatening violence against themselves or someone else. Raising the minimum age of purchase for assault weapons like an AR-15 or an AK-47 from 18 to 21. That idea enjoys bipartisan support and would save lives as well. I want to continue to work with you and other Texans to make sure that we make this a safer state to raise our families and in which to live going forward. Last thing, and perhaps one of the most important things, is the right to vote. I started with this, mentioning the great work that Chairwoman Collier and other members of the state legislature have done on this issue. But today, Texas is the toughest state in the nation, bar none, in which to cast a ballot or register to vote. But it's not tough on everyone equally. When you've seen over the last 10 years, 7 of them on Greg Abbott's watch, 750 polling place closures. That's twice the number as the next closest state. And most of those polling place closures are in the fastest growing Black and brown neighborhoods. When in the middle of the pandemic, you see one polling place or one ballot box drop-off location per county, including in Harris County, which has more people than the state of Nevada. When you have a gerrymander that's been described as a racial gerrymander by a 3-judge federal panel because it draws Black and brown Texans out of a congressional district to disempower them, make it less likely that they'll vote or that their vote will have the same power as if they'd remained in another district. When you can use your license to carry a firearm to prove who you are at the ballot box, but you cannot use your student ID at Prairie View A&M to do the same, then we understand who is under attack right now. This campaign is purposefully and intentionally focused on reaching the voters who are under the greatest attack right now by this governor and by the Republican majority in the legislature. With your help, if you would join us in this campaign, I promise you that we will be on the doors of those very voters who've been the focus of disenfranchisement, voter suppression, voter intimidation, and do everything in our power to make sure that they're the margin of victory on election night. And when we win, focus on the reforms necessary to make sure that this democracy truly works for everyone, whether that is automatic voter registration, same-day voter registration, online voter registration, or replacing Confederate Heroes Day as a state holiday with Election Day as a state holiday so that people can actually take the time off to vote. We're going to make sure that we get this democracy back. So thank you for being on this call. Looking forward to taking your questions. Grateful to be in this fight with you and looking forward to winning it with you.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much for that, Beto. All right, everybody, before we move into Q&A, please stay on the call. Beto is going to be taking a few questions from the audience. But before we move over into Q&A, I wanted to have a couple more staff members introduce themselves. We'll start with Dawn.
Hi, everyone. My name is Dawn Jones, and I'm the Student Organizing Director. I reside here in Houston, Texas, and I'm also a very proud alumna of the Texas Southern University. I saw a few of y'all in the chat. And so, yeah, I'll pass it on to D'Angelo.
Hello, good evening, everyone. My name is D'Angelo Coulter. I have the honor of serving as the HBCU campus manager for the campaign. Also, a proud alum of the Texas Southern University, and I'm very happy to see you all, as well as support a candidate that truly not only cares for us, but also the efforts and the needs of HBCUs.
Awesome. Thank y'all so much. So for our very first question, it looks like we actually have a very, very special guest in attendance with us today. Her name is Crystal Mason, and I will let her come on camera and introduce herself. We can't hear your audio. It's like very faint.
Crystal, it sounds like it's picking up, but it could be picking up from earbuds or a microphone that's further away. Can just barely hear you when you talk.
Wow. It's all the way up.
There you go. You're good. I can hear you now.
Way to go. Okay. Hi, I'm Crystal Mason. I'm a criminal justice and voting rights activist based in Tarrant County. Over the past 5 years, I've been working to bring awareness of a lack of information given to citizens, especially when it comes to voting access. During a recent survey of Black Texans, we found that 65% of folks had issues with employment and 43% had been affected by the rising costs of housing. So Beto, what are your plans to ensure that returning citizens have access to affordable housing and wages to keep up with inflation?
Crystal, thanks for the question. Two things there. When you're working a $7.25 an hour job, which is the minimum wage still 13 years after it was set in the state of Texas, you're not working just one, you're working two or three $7.25 an hour jobs. To your point, Crystal, there's a good chance you're not voting. You just literally will not have the time to be able to do that. As we just heard the name of the great Texas Southern University come up, I can't help but think about the line that runs 6 hours deep outside of the TSU polling place on election day. I'm amazed that anyone can stand in that line for 6 hours. I'm so ashamed that anyone is made to stand in that line for 6 hours, but I guarantee there are folks who are working these jobs who just literally cannot afford to do that. So in addition to making sure that we open up more polling places so that no one waits in a 6-hour line. We must raise the minimum wage at a minimum to $15 an hour going forward, and then work for a truly livable wage in every single part of this state. That in addition means getting behind the ability to organize. This state is sometimes described as a quote unquote right to work state, which in fact makes it very hard for unions to organize and workers to use the leverage of the value that they provide to get better working conditions, better wages, and better safety for themselves and for the public. Let's make sure that this is also a right to organize state going forward. When it comes to housing, really hard for folks who do not have a permanent address to get registered or to stay registered or to prove their identity when they go to vote on election day or during early voting, or if they vote by mail. So let's do more to invest in housing. That means more innovative use of state tax credit housing resources. Let's focus on affordability. Let's work with people who've lived in a given neighborhood for generations, but now find themselves priced out sometimes through the force of gentrification. I want to work with local city councils, stakeholders, neighborhood and community leaders to find out where state resources and state policy can help people to stay in their homes, literally, who are getting priced out in Greg Abbott's Texas, where property taxes have gone up $20 billion over the last 7 years. Electricity bills going through the roof right now as well. There's a lot more that we can do there. And lastly, you mentioned returning citizens. There are more returning citizens in the state of Texas than any other state. This country puts more people behind bars than any country on the face of the planet. Texas puts more of our own behind bars than any other state in the union. So there are more people coming back to their families, to their communities, to their homes. And we got to make sure that once they are off paper, once they have fully settled their debt to society, they understand that their voting rights have also been restored and they're able to get registered again. Our group, Powered by People, has worked on this for the last 2 years, literally in some cases going door to door, but also working with other great grassroots organizations to remind returning citizens of this right. As governor, and working with you, Crystal, because you've just been such an incredible, fierce advocate on this, I want to make sure that we make it state policy to proactively inform people that their rights have been restored and make sure that we get people back on the rolls. And it doesn't matter, of course, to us whether folks vote for a Republican, an independent, or a Democrat, but that they are able to vote. And right now we have functionally disenfranchised so many of our fellow Texans. In fact, in 2020, 7 million eligible Texans did not cast a ballot, not because they don't love this great democracy, but in many instances, they didn't know that they were eligible to vote, or because of these new voter suppression and voter intimidation laws, it was just too intimidating or confusing. That's why we want the folks on this webinar to sign up with us to help us reach those voters and bring them back into this great democracy. Crystal, thank you for your work and thanks for the great question.
Thank you.
All right, it looks like we have someone who's been asking some really great questions in the Q&A. We're going to go ahead and bring her up now.
Hi there.
Hi, can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Awesome. My name is Alandris. I'm based in Collin County, Texas. I hope you're doing well. I did read about you getting sick, so I do hope you are feeling well. I do a lot of American history through the Black American experience on TikTok. I have done a lot of voter registration information to galvanize young voters in the state of Texas. And some have been getting registered based off of those videos. And so I'm glad that you have been utilizing social media to push your platform and try to reach the younger generation. Some of the questions that a few of my 130,000 followers have been asking was how you will impact the Black community in various different areas. And you've already answered a lot of our questions. However, I did want to follow up on what will it look like when you are in office, you have our vote, we support you, and then after you are the governor of Texas, where will that connection to the Black community remain? Will you be in contact with small organizations as well as those who have been pushing your platform online to try to make sure that we're still working together? Will you be working with groups such as Mothers Against Police Brutality, Black Trans Advocacy Coalition, the NAACP, the National Urban League, the AFIA Center, Black Chamber of Commerce, 100 Black Men in Therapy for Black Girls, to try to make sure that our issues can remain at the forefront of what it is that you ran on?
Alandris, thank you for the question. Thanks for being on. Thanks for all the work that you do. And you asked in your introduction, and thank you for asking about my health. You know, I took a turn for the worse on Friday and got pretty sick with an infection, bacterial infection. And luckily, thanks to the great team I work with, got to a hospital in San Antonio, Methodist Hospital, got some great care there for a couple of days. And I'm back here in El Paso recuperating on antibiotics and getting some rest. So thank you for asking. I hope to be back on the trail again very soon. The question you ask is one that I get a lot, and I think it's very legitimate. And if you'd allow me to digress at the beginning of my answer, if the great crime, and I think it is truly a great crime being committed by Greg Abbott and the Republican majority right now, and over the many years they've been in power, is to seek the functional disenfranchisement of Black voters, then a very serious crime committed by Democrats at the same time was to take those same voters for granted. Now, that doesn't describe every Democrat, and I'd love to exclude present company, especially the state representatives and candidates who are on this call. But I know far too often candidates who see the Black electorate as a reliable, quote unquote, voting bloc, also see it as a group of voters that they don't have to spend much time with or money on, because turnout is reliable and they think voting selection is predictable. What I believe, and I think this has been borne out in recent elections, is no vote is won until it's earned. And the only way I know to do that is to show up and be with, in front of, listen to, and learn from the people that I want to serve. It's the only way to earn that vote, and it's the only way to deliver and to perform to expectations. I just won't be able to do that until I know what those expectations are, until I've heard in their own words from the people that I want to serve just what their hopes are, what their ambitions are, what their fears are. That's the way that I have been running this campaign. I think by that same token, the only way that I will be able to continue to do a good job, and I really hope to do a great job as governor, is to be held accountable by the very people who put me in this position of public trust in the first place. As a member of Congress for 6 years, I held monthly, no holds barred, open to all town hall meetings that went on for hours. Anyone could ask any question, make any criticism, lift any idea, elevate any problem. And going into those meetings, I knew I would have to face my constituents. I knew I'd have to account for myself, what I had done, what I had failed to do since I last met with the voters in El Paso. And it made me such a better member of Congress than I would have otherwise been. In addition, I understood that not everyone can make it out to a 6 p.m. evening town hall meeting. Some folks are working the night shift. Some folks are raising their kids. Some folks are taking care of their parents. And so, to your point, I made sure to seek out and then also be responsive to community and neighborhood leaders who'd say, hey, Beto, will you come to us at this time, at this place, to answer our questions and to hear what we have going on in our community. Again, I know that made me a much, much better representative than I otherwise would have been. So for every organization that you named over the course of your question, the answer is yes. To you specifically, the answer is absolutely. And I would love your help now. I would love your help going forward. I'd love your help after we win to make sure that we can get this done. And again, I think it is for our mutual interest of one, making sure that I am held accountable and that I really deliver. And two, that we have the opportunity to afford the greatest possible public service to this state, and especially to a constituency that has been one of, if not the most reliable constituencies in the Democratic Party, so reliable that I think it has been taken for granted in the past, and make sure that that mistake is never made again. So in advance, I want to thank you for your willingness to work with me on this, but the answer is emphatically yes.
Awesome. Thank you. I look forward to seeing you in Collin County.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. And for the last question for Beto, it looks like Surfa has a question.
It's Sephra.
Sephra. Right.
Yes, hi. Thank you all for having me. I'm Sephra Perkins. I am a proud TSU alumni as well. I did have two questions, and hopefully then we get around to both of them. But my first question would be is what if when you're elected, not if, when you're elected, what would you be able to do to help resolve the DFPS crisis regarding the CWAP children? And the reason why I ask that is because a lot of the kids that are in care in the state of Texas are primarily brown and Black children. And it's a bigger crisis at this moment, and we don't have a lot of placement options for these children. So, and we're not getting a lot of help from our current governor on this matter. So that's why I'm asking this question. What would you do when you're elected to help resolve this crisis?
And Sephra, do you want to ask your second question as well? And then I'll answer them both.
Yes, and then my second question is, when you're elected, what steps would you take to overturn this atrocious abortion ban that's currently in effect?
Thank you, Sephra. These are both really important issues. On this first one, as you know, because you asked such a well-informed question, we have the worst run foster care program in America, unfortunately, bar none. 32,000 kids in that foster care system. As I've learned from listening to children who have aged out of that system, as I've learned from listening to foster parents, as I've just learned from listening to families and CPS caseworkers, that this is a really big problem that has a lot of inputs. We mentioned the minimum wage being $7.25 right now. We mentioned being the least insured state in America, whose largest provider of mental health care services is the county jail system. There are a lot of inputs that create this problem. No one wants to lose their child to DFPS or CPS in the state of Texas. And yet we are creating the conditions where sometimes that is inevitable as an outcome. And so one of the things I've heard from foster parents is, let's talk about fostering the family and not just the child. But to put a point to the tragedy that you described in your question, we've lost the lives of 100 kids in the custody and care of the state of Texas just since 2020. Hundreds more have been raped, trafficked, abused while in our custody. And as you also know, under Abbott, much of that care and custody is privatized. We send these incredibly vulnerable kids to private providers when this is obviously something that's in the public interest and deserves full public scrutiny, just to make sure that we all understand that Greg Abbott has had every chance to fix this and has failed. More than 6 years ago, a federal judge named Janice Jack said that kids who emerge from our foster care program in Texas come out of this program more damaged than when they originally went in. Just this last January, Judge Jack said that problem that she first described 6 years ago has gone from bad to worse. So Sephra, I'm so glad that you elevated one of the most serious problems that we have. So one, we have to give this the attention that it deserves if we're going to fix it. In answer to the last question, I talked a lot about accountability. I expect you and this state and those kids to hold me accountable for making sure that we devote the resources necessary, but also take on the responsibility that's been missing to make sure that these kids come through okay. That means paying those CPS caseworkers enough to make sure that they stay on the job. We're losing them at a frightening rate and are having a hard time hiring up the full complement. That means that caseworkers are struggling to manage the caseload that they have right now. As you also know, those children are not getting placed at the rate that we need them to be placed. Many of them are sleeping literally in CPS offices, in the hallways, under the desks, on top of the tables. We need to make that a priority. Trying to connect those kids with family members who have been vetted, and we do our due diligence. We know that typically affords better outcomes when we can make that happen. But Sephra, I bet you also know that sometimes family members don't qualify for state assistance or aid, and it literally becomes financially not an option for many families. So making sure that we fully fund that as an option. Trying to address issues within the home before this becomes an emergency and that family loses that child is another thing that we can do that would help us significantly going forward. So I want to make sure that we make this a priority for those kids, and whether it is averting a family losing that child to the foster care system in the first place, or trying to return that child to a member of the family, or hiring enough CPS caseworkers, paying them enough, treating them with enough respect so that we get better outcomes and better results. That's all going to be very, very important going forward. On this total abortion ban that you mentioned as part of your second question, that has left Texas women with a ban that begins at conception with no exception for rape or incest, that will only exacerbate the maternal mortality crisis that is 3 times as deadly for Black women in the state of Texas. One, and most importantly, we need to win this election. The shockwaves that it will send through this state to have a proudly, boldly pro-choice Democrat win for the first time in 32 years since Ann Richards did it last in 1990 will give us the political capital, the leverage we need to make sure that we can restore protections for every single woman in Texas to make her own decisions about her own body and her own future. We also need to use the power of the governor's veto to stop bad ideas that are coming down the pike already, like checking the travel documents of women of childbearing age who want to leave the state of Texas, or punishing employers who want to finance the out-of-state travel for their female employees who want to make their own personal, private healthcare decisions. We also know that there are other bad ideas that will be elevated in Texas if we don't win, like marriage equality, like same-sex intimacy, like the right to contraception. These are all things that Justice Clarence Thomas, in his concurring opinion to the Dobbs decision that overturned Roe versus Wade, said that are coming next from the Supreme Court. We know that there's one state that is itching to take the lead on these things under Greg Abbott, and that is Texas. So winning this race, using the power of our victory to bring people to the table, to overturn these bad laws, vetoing others that are coming down, and then making sure that every other lever of power at our disposal, whether it is calling special sessions, working with the great state legislators who are on this call, that we make every use of that possible so that we restore these full protections. And then the last thing that I want to say, and I know Sephra knows this, but for anyone who does not, who's on this call, no one in 1973 came in and rode to the rescue of Texas women to win protection for the right to privacy, to make personal and private healthcare decisions without government intervention. It was Texas women who got it done. It was Jane Roe, it was Sarah Weddington, it was Linda Coffey, it was so many others who supported them. It was Texas women 50 years ago, it will be Texas women again today. So Sephra, thank you for this question. And thanks to all who are on this call. We are all together part of an extraordinary movement that is more than a match for this moment. We are going to win this election, and I'm so grateful that I get to do this with you, by you, and it's the honor of my life. And so, thank you. I'm going to turn this back over either to Trayshawn or whoever's taking the call from here. But grateful for all the participants who are on, and looking forward to seeing you out there across the state of Texas over the next 2+ months. Thank you all.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Beto. It really means a lot to all of us that you're taking the time out to be here, even through your illness. Our thoughts and prayers are with you right now, but it really means a lot to us that you are really prioritizing key demographics of Texas that are going to help you win this election. So this is amazing. So with that being said, we are going to go ahead and wrap up. We are at time. Before we go, there are a couple of key things that we wanted to share with y'all. The first is we have a pledge to join this Black Texans for Beto Coalition. During this, when you hit the QR code on here, if you don't have a phone, if you don't know how to use a QR code, that's perfectly fine. There will be an email that follows this event, and that email will have links to where this QR code will take you. But once you sign up for the pledge, you'll be a part of the Black Texans for Beto Coalition. This coalition is basically kind of like a hub in which all of our events and news and things will stream from here for all of the things that we have going on throughout the state of Texas for the Black Texans Coalition. So you can actually get in touch with myself, with any of the other coalition's members. Their emails will also be either in the chat or in the email that you receive after this presentation, if you want to get involved with helping to get Beto elected as the next governor of Texas. All right. And so the next QR code that we have is going to be a plan to vote. So you can actually share a social media toolkit with your friends and family to basically let them know that you are voting for Beto and blue all the way down the ballot. And so with that being said, you'll be able to easily kind of push this out to your friends and families and get them involved in this coalition as well. Because honestly, even though there's a bunch of amazing staff on this call right now and on the campaign, the best person the best folks that we have available to help us win this election is going to be you all who are a part of this coalition and your direct outreach to your friends and family. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. Thank y'all so much for being in attendance with us tonight. This is a huge call on a Monday night. It means a lot to have everyone here, whether you're streaming it, whether you're here live with us on the link. It just means a lot to see everyone involved and fired up about this election. So let's go ahead and get Beto voted in. Thank y'all.